This is Interpreting Wine podcast founder and host Lawrence Francis welcoming you to my first ever deep dive into a single producer with Waterford Distillery of Ireland. This is the type of series I've been wanting to make ever since starting the podcast back in 2017, giving as it does unrivaled access for you the listener to all levels of the company, from strategy and history right the way through every single production detail. I think you'll agree Waterford are doing something very special, and I'd highly recommend subscribing to the podcast so that you're alerted whenever new episodes go live. Today's episode of the Waterford Distillery Special features an interview with two of Waterford's organic barley growers, Ross and Amy Jackson. We hear how the couple got into farming organically, before they give us a deep dive into the organic transition and growing process. We talk connection with food, and they give us their take on the Waterford Distillery community. Enjoy.
My brother and I have a twin brother. We were brought up on the farm. My father was farming about 365 acres. We both went to college. I did agricultural science in UCD and my brother did engineering in Trinity. So we both came back to the farm. We're both working on the farm and we've got off-farm jobs as well. So I work as an agriculture consultant. And I was conventional farming. I was doing conventional beef and tillage, and I decided then again that just looking for something different and probably more sustainable and probably more profitable as well. When you go into organic, so you're a conventional farmer, you go into organic, there's a 2-year conversion period. So it takes 2 years for your land to basically be free of fertilizers and pesticides. So we can produce, any crops we produce in the first 2 years have to go conventional. So there's no premium price there and we've got much lower yields. So there's an organic payment then to basically subsidise that. So then the payment is greatly reduced then in the years 3 onwards, because from year 3 onwards we can produce an organic product that's going to have a premium price. Sure.
But also when we went into organic, the farm had been all in tillage. So we needed to put it back into grass to improve the soil structure and get rid of some of the tillage weeds, so that then when we did start to grow a tillage crop, the weeds would be much less of a problem since we can't use herbicides.
We're sitting here in the distillery, and I think it must make you very proud to be able to come here and see your products being distilled and actually seeing kind of what's happened to them once they've left the farm. But I just think it would be great sitting down with you guys just to to hear the story of the cycle of the plant there on your farm, and then how much of that process do you then get to follow through before you then come here to see it being distilled.
The farm is situated in North Tipperary, which is pretty much the very centre of Ireland. Okay, we plant our crops generally around middle of March. That's when we aim to have them in. We sow at slightly higher than a conventional rate because we have to try and have our crop competing more against the weeds. Okay, so that's quite essential that you have it going in a very good fine seed bed, and it's going to be nice and thick grown up, so it's going to basically shade out all the weeds. So that's a little bit different than conventional. From then, what you can do, and what we did this year, was if you do see weeds coming up at possibly when the crop's at a 2 to 3 leaf stage, you can bring in what's called a tine harrow, and you can run this through the crop. And what that does is, when the weeds are just starting to germinate at this point, so it'll pull the little weeds out, but the barley has got a good root structure there and the barley will stay in the ground. So that's one thing that can help. Other than that, we're basically shutting the gate until harvest. There's nothing else really we can do with that crop being organic. So we shut the gate until harvest, and that's it. We harvest the crop, and the next time we see it is down here in the distillery. With organic, you can't just keep continuously growing the same crop. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep the biology of the soil alive, and it's the biology of the soil now that actually feeds the crop. So traditionally it's thought that you put on all your fertilizers and that feeds the crop in a conventional system, but what we're actually trying to do is we are trying to feed the biology of the soil, and the biology of the soil then feeds the crop. So for example, if the plant of barley is looking for potassium, it'll send out what's called a root exudate, and this root exudate will attract certain biology in the soil, certain microorganisms, and those microorganisms will come and feed on the sugars in this root exudate, and in return it will give the phosphorus or calcium or whatever the crop is looking for. So that's very interesting. So what we're doing now is to try and feed the soil biology. Once the crop has been cut, obviously the roots are going to start to die. So we want to keep the biology alive in the soil. So what we are doing is we are introducing what's called a cover crop. That's numerous different crops that are grown in the field for this biology to feed on over the winter. And for example, as I mentioned before, it was the likes of phosphorus. There's plenty of phosphorus in the ground but maybe unavailable, but certain plants like buckwheat, the roots can go way down to subsoil layers, and it can bring up this phosphorus and make it available to the plants. So it's all this combination of looking after the biology of the soil and having no pesticides or fungicides on the soil, which really looks after the plant, and the biology is looking after and feeding our plant and bringing it to harvest. The only barley we have in the farm now, we have a rotation with barley, oats and grasses, and where there are cover crops in as well. But the only barley we grow now actually is for Waterford Distillery, for the distilling. So myself and my brother, what we have is called a batch. So we grow 100 tonnes between us. So this is one batch, it's kept separately, it's distilled separately. So in 5 years' time, we'll have a bottle of whiskey basically we know has come straight from our own farm, which will give us a sense of pride and achievement, and share it among our friends and family, and that's the plan. When you're a conventional farmer, you grow the plant, you harvest it, and it's gone and forgotten about. Now it's great for us that we've looked after the crop all year, harvested, comes down here then to Waterford Distillery, and then we get to see the process then. So we got invited down, we saw it being distilled, and then we got to go down to where the casks have been stored, and we got to taste our own whiskey. So that gives you a great sense of achievement, that you have produced, not well, you haven't produced it, but you've produced a grain that's produced this. So it's going to be nice to sit down on a table with our own bottle of whiskey there, and it is going to give us a big lift, and it's something you wouldn't get in a traditional sense. So we know everyone down here by name now. It's really like a family down here at the moment, because they come up to us and we come down, and we just know everyone so well now and get on well with people here. So it's lovely to be a part of it, and we're really enjoying it, and we just can't wait to taste it.
It adds a lot of interest for us, I think, when we're farming and we know exactly where our product is going to, and we can see it as a product that will be for sale on the shelf. Anything you're eating, anything we're putting into our mouths now, whether it's your potatoes or your cornflakes or whatever it is, anything you're eating, people want to know where it comes from. Even your meat now, people want to know exactly where that lamb was produced, what farm was produced on, how it was treated over its lifetime, that it was looked after. Once people know that, they're happy to have their meat. Yeah, so I think with mass production of food and the need for large scale uniformity in our food products as well, that maybe people are disassociated with where the food comes from. All right, it would be traceable if they really tried. There might be a code on a packet, but essentially the whole product looks the same, and it's the same every time you go to whatever shop you go to. Whereas with the whiskey, they're trying to link it directly back to the primary producer, the farmer, and give the story of the farm. And we associate with that. We're very much into our own home produce as well. So I suppose it's something that sits particularly well with us. Yeah, because we have our own pigs, our own chickens, our own lamb, and we like to know where our food comes from, because we don't know what process it goes on when you buy your meat in the supermarkets, how that lamb has been treated, what doses, what sprays has been on the crops. We're happy now that we know exactly what's been on our land, what's gone into producing our lamb or beef or chicken or corn, so we know exactly what's in it. So it's nice to know that we know that it's all good, wholesome, healthy food that we're producing, and that's what we're about, and that's why it's nice to be linked with Waterford Distillery, because that's kind of what they're looking for, so it works quite well.
It's really interesting for me coming into this world, really, from the wine side of things, and seeing how really people have gone really deeply into knowing where the wine in their glass is coming from. I think increasingly more popular now is knowing that the person who grew the grapes is the same one that actually vinified them, and then that person will actually be the one stood in front of you at a tasting with the bottle, and there is no traceability better than that, I don't think, where you've got somebody that's followed the process right the way through from the grape to the glass. And yeah, I think in a sense it almost feels like whiskey in that particular respect, maybe, I don't know if it's lost its way or it just hasn't caught up, and it feels like it hasn't caught up with not just wine but with other producers. As I think you quite rightly say, meat and cheese and all the rest of it. We want to know where things are coming from, and I think this definitely feels like a game changer, I would say, in terms of just bringing everybody who's involved in the chain along for the ride as well. It doesn't feel like it's something that's you're totally separate from the process. You're involved in the process right the way through. Probably to finish off now, we're sitting here at the growers gathering. There's all of the different growers that Waterford Distillery are working with. I think maybe say something about nights like this and ability to come and to kind of break bread with the other people who are involved in the Waterford Distillery project.
Yeah, well, I guess it's lovely to be involved and to be down here. If it wasn't for us growing barley for Waterford Distillery, we'd be sitting at home watching Peaky Blinders or something. So it's nice to come here and meet growers who are doing the same thing that we are, and swap stories and swap experiences and learn from other people. And look, it's lovely to meet people and chat to the lads here that we know so well now, and we're down here, this is our third time down here now, so we know the people and it's great fun, and we're looking forward to a few beers and a tour of the factory and a bit of food and a good night and home again.
At the last time that we came down here, we brought our son with us, and he's only 2 at the moment, so he won't remember it. But this time we've brought my stepdad, and he likes whiskey. He'd have his certain favourites, and he is really looking forward to seeing the distillery here. So I feel quite privileged to be able to bring him down here and show him around a distillery, and quite proud, like you said as well, that it's our barley that's being used in this distillery. So it's something quite special for me.
Thank you once again to Ross and Amy. I couldn't think of a better way to end this special series than speaking with 2 people who are close to the star of the show in the Waterford story, which is the barley and the people who grow it. Do of course check out below for Waterford's website, where you can find details of their very first release, Pilgrimage, which goes on sale on the 25th of April, exclusively to those making the pilgrimage to Waterford Distillery. It's just left for me to say a huge thank you to everybody at Waterford who made this special series possible. Right the way through, from Mark Rainier giving his vision, Grace taking us out into the fields and introducing us to the barley and the farmers, to Neil taking us through the brewing and fermentation process, Ned, master distiller and taster, Mark Newton talking how to communicate this amazing project to the world, Amy and Ross representing all of the farmers, and everybody behind the scenes. I really feel like there's something very special taking place over at Waterford, and I'll be forever honoured to have been a part of documenting that journey. If you've loved this series or any other of the series that I put out on interpreting wine, I'd massively appreciate a review wherever you're listening, which will help more people hear these stories and to me to rank higher in the ratings. And if you're not already, I would of course love to have you following along with me on my next adventures on social media, where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. See you next time.